All right. We got presentation number 3: the crime fighting and service roles in policing. Um, yeah. So before we get started, I'm gonna try to show a video that I found for this case. I think I'm gonna record it off the phone from my computer screen. So it might look bad, but hopefully you're able to get the gist of it. But okay, but that's for later on. So the first point, shoot, analyze the dual mandate of modern policing, so enforcing laws and serving communities. So I guess it kind of talks about modern policing, right? How the whole idea of the warrior and guardian mindset that can come up later, but the core function is, you know, kind of identifying what law enforcement does, right? Or what their job is. It's not only, of course, serving, protecting, but what do they really do? Well, they enforce criminal and civil law, investigate crimes, and apprehending offenders. So that's the classic stop crime, preserving public order. I guess that falls under the serving. Respond to emergencies and threats, serving, and protecting constitutional rights and upholding due process. That's basically what they do in like the broadest terms. When people think of what is the job of police, right? You might say serve and protect, right? Especially when someone asks you why you want to be a police officer, right? You want we tend to answer with serve and protect, but it goes deeper than that. They said it's not only about serve and protecting, but remember that you must enforce criminal law and civil, uh, investigate the crimes. It's not only just he's a suspect, let's go after him. You also must give him due process, right? Give him a fair trial, um, and all that stuff. Um, there's some assumptions, of course. Safety is achieved primarily through difference, authority, and control. That kind of speaks for itself. And there's a bunch of challenges. Sometimes they tend to over. I guess this is where the idea of abuse of power comes through. We saw this with Judge Goal. I don't remember. I always confuse both classes, especially when it comes to serial. I think this one was, I guess, for CJ 101. But but like I said before I get to that, over reliance on punishment tools, so arrests, citations, forces, and stuff like that, right? What gets annoying, like I mentioned, Judge Joel, I believe his name. Wait a minute. The way he controlled his courtrooms, right, or the people that he was judging, he always put on parole, right, and always added like small differences, right. This big thing be like, if you can't maintain help support a kid, don't have any more kids, right? That was like his big thing, apparently. Just stuff like that. Like, any small thing he does, he keeps on adding pro, right? And so he can still have that leash, I guess, right? That lead attached to that person. They're never actually free, even though they're trying to get better. You see this with that lady who's trying to get better, but always falls back into right, getting more parole, and that can break the trust. Sometimes people are like, well, I'm here, I'm gonna better myself, I need the help, right? And the other services, like she was trying to get over to drug abuse court, right? Drug court, And Judge Gold wouldn't let that happen because he believed that what he was doing was right. It was what's best for her. Right? That kind of breaks, I believe, the trust between the justice system. Um, it ends up being redundant. It doesn't show that the justice system wants to help. It shows more that they want to trap people in it, never give them a chance to really free themselves. Then it's another challenge. Reactive posture. Officers arrive after the harm's occurred. Sometimes officers can't be there in time. When a crime is reported, there is a time span where anything can go down before law enforcement actually shows up. And that's one of the challenges. No matter how hard we try, or how hard we spread ourselves out, right? Even in a small community, it still takes time to show up. Right? Sometimes you'd be like, what's the point of showing up if it's a crime you committed? They said the part is to serve. They're trying to preserve public order afterwards, not really there to stop the crime, but if the crime was committed, all they can do is help preserve what little public order is still left over after that. And then that's where they start investigating the crime, right? That's the due process, right? Law enforcement shows up, they start investigating and apprehending the offenders, right? I think we talked about this in class, super vaguely. I can't remember, so I don't really want to get too much into it. But I believe we did, where it's not always clean cut like we see in the shows, where like we show up, there's always evidence. There's always one piece of evidence that can tie to someone or get a lead. It's never that easy. And then there's just not being trained accordingly. In these recent years, we've been seeing a trend of increasing mental health awareness in law enforcement. Trying to break down some barriers, like especially language barriers, right? That's another challenge. I seem we talked about like a bunch of different states are barely applying those kind of training. There's some that barely applied it in like 2018, 2019, and that's 6-7 years ago. So it's like they're barely getting into stuff like that. Like I said, don't remember which states are there, but I think there's a lot of states where they're barely pushing out those training and making it mandatory. What else? Like I said, the warrior and where's my notes on that? The warrior and guardian mindset, if I can find it. Where is it? Where is that? I have too many tabs open. Shoot, I lost it. I found it. Okay. One of the biggest, I guess, movement that law enforcement is doing is the movement from warrior to guardian mindset. For those who don't know, warrior was more of a time where they were more breaking down doors, trying to not incriminate but lock up as much criminals as possible, trying to clean the streets instead of understanding or adjusting, tackling the root of the problem. They were like, if we get these people out the street, crime will go down. I don't know statistically if it actually worked. I really don't know. I should look it up, really, how effective it actually was during that time. what are the crime rates between back then were the warrior mindset and the guardian mindset. That's assuming something that's we looked into, but yeah, guardian is more well, like I said, tackling the root of the problem, understanding why people are doing these crimes, right? Understanding, which right, why poor families, stuff like this, right? I don't say look for the easy way, right. Why do they go to root of crime, right? Why do they do petty theft? Why do they do this? Why do that? Instead of sending them to court and making them enter the justice system, they'd be like, well, there's this local food bank you can go to instead of doing this, right? They show more options than just jail time. And that's kind of like the main gist of the Guardian mindset. They try to put more the community relations, helping people connect to the resources they need, and not something that can affect them later down the road. Especially if they want to better themselves and get a job eventually. Having that criminal record, right, saying that you have jail time can make it really hard to get a job, right? And it kind of makes them stuck in that loop where I can't get no job, but I don't want to go back to crime, but crime is easier, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's I think the biggest point I can make in modern policing. Is that I definitely see it. You definitely get to see more where they start involving different groups, like we talked about this AFSAS, right? For I forgot what that's for, but right, crimes against children, CPS shows up and stuff like that, right? They're trying to apply more knowledgeable parties in topics where the officers themselves don't understand, right? Then we go to the other point being examine the tension and overlay between these roles. Yeah, and like it kind of falls under that. I didn't realize I was pretty much talking about that. What's it called? The Guardian Warrior mindset. But other stuff like that is you can do in like quick. We talk about challenges, right? But the challenge where it was showing after the cause, it goes to fall under either quick response versus long term engagement. Right, responding quick to emergencies, right? It can work. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it can. But it doesn't really feel that engaging. Which is, I think we talked about this too, or when we voted on which service, if we had to choose which service to choose, we chose the one that will help the individual instead of the group. Right, and doing this right, having quick responses, it targets that family or that individual that got hurt or was affected by it mostly, which is great to know that, but only they will get to see the outcome and changes between, right, those events. But if we focus more on the long term engagement, where we be like, or they will be, right, showing up more in those areas, having more of a presence, helping out more, instead of being there after crime is done. Because I feel like quick response is more like you're in and out, right? You get to the area, you find out who did it, and you're out, and then you leave the area alone again, right? You kind of out of sight, out of mind type of deal. That's how I feel that works. So like I said, it is a challenge, and I do understand understanding if the crimes that were committed, why even show up, right? A lot of people probably think that they can't even do their job properly. So the third point is critically evaluate how department balances these roles and policies and practices. So I broke down in policing levels and ground level. All right. Policing is a policy. Sorry, is having the framework. Having those SOPs in place. Um, those guidelines help everyone be on the same page. And it forces a standard on how everyone should be operating. It'd be more like they said. I try to build more trust instead of being, be more aggressive and stuff like that. And in groundwork, it'd be like every police officer would take their own understanding of those SOPs. I'm not saying like twist the rules, but they at least know how to act an individual experience, right? Because no two encounters are ever the same. No matter how much you practice, like simulations or anything like that, it would never happen the same way twice in the real world. So at least they know, like, I got these sources I can use to help this person, right? From a mental illness, from abuse, drug abuse, whatever, right? I got these contacts I can use to connect them to the right help instead of being like, I really can't help you out there. What else I can talk about this? Yeah, I mean, that's really it I can find for choosing policy. So on that video I mentioned earlier, so the case I kind of focus on, I mean, not as modern, is what, 10 years now? 10 years ago? It was the killing of Walter Scott. A quick summary. April 4th, 2015. Walter Scott, 50-year-old black male, was fatally shot by Officer Slager in Carson, South Carolina. North Carson, South Carolina. Apparently he had a busted out rear light, and when he got pulled over, I think he attempted to escape by running, and the officer tried taser non-lethal, but failed. And then while the suspect, Mr. Scott, was running away, he decided to reach for his firearm and shoot him and fire it 8 times, landing, was it 5 out of the 8 on the suspect. Of course, Carson was, like I said, was fatal. He did die afterwards. I was able to find a video, kind of the experience. Like I said, it might be kind of weird how I'm gonna do this. Probably a better way of doing this. But yeah, it is kind of like a step by step. So I'm kind of trying to skip to the part where it kind of shows. Okay, so let's see. I'm just gonna flip this over if I can. Can I? Oh no, I can't. Okay. Oh. Well, I might show up the show the video, connect the video to the thing, but because I kind of step by play, we kind of see Officer Slager try to comprehend Mr. Scott. There was an item thrown to the floor. I can't really tell what it is. At a quick glance, the way it bounced, it kind of does seem like a firearm. So if this was a firearm, Mr. Scott is now unarmed, right? And he's trying to run away. His back is completely turned from the officer, and then the officer fires 8 shots. Um, the officer apparently turns around and looks at his partner. But the thing that really gets me is after the shots are fired, and after the officer calls it in, he walks over. It's no rush, no sense of purpose. He just walks over. Um, for me, and the altercations that allegations that happened during the video, after video, was that it was racially motivated, and it kind of does seem like it, because like I said, the officer walked over. Even his partner shows up, and they're just walking over. They're not trying to give him that medical attention that he needs, right? If you choose someone, right, you kind of want to help him out as soon as possible, right? The evidence was caught in that, but they said there was no sense of purpose coming from the officers, and it really shows that warrior mindset where it was more trying to stop, though it wasn't an actual crime. Well, it was a crime, but it wasn't like a huge crime like theft or anything. It was more like getting the job done than actually trying to figure out what was going on, you know. Yeah, that's pretty much it for that case study there. Yeah, like I said, I will try to post it as a link or something somehow.